So the chairman of the European Committee, Ursula von der Leyen, is attending the World Economic Forum in Davos. With us to comment on this is Pieter Cleppe, editor-in-chief of Brussels Report. Great having you here, Peter.
Thank you, Jacob.
So could you explain for our viewers, what is the World Economic Forum?
It's basically an annual conference hosted in Davos in the Swiss Alps, where Klaus Schwab, the chairman of the WEF, welcomes government leaders, influential business people. So it's like, let's say, one of the most high-profile networking events in the world.
And this World Economic Forum usually creates a lot of buzz. There's not that much of an insight for journalists and media to watch what the attendees are talking about and the issues and subjects. Why does this conference matter?
Well, it matters simply because of the kind of people that make it over there. These are government leaders, very senior business people. Of course, as I'm sure most viewers will know, the WEF is subject to a lot of conspiracy theories. And I think a lot of the criticism is justified in the sense that people criticize sort of the kind of things that are being proposed there, because in theory there's no official conclusions, but sort of the themes that are being discussed. It's all about top-down control. It's about more global regulatory coordination, so taking power away from national democracies. Of course, climate change is always a big topic. The people that arrive there with private jets are then pontificating how important it is that ordinary citizens reduce their CO2 emissions. So I think that kind of agenda is rightly provoking a lot of opposition. Where I personally, however, disagree is that somehow, Klaus Schwab, who's an old German who speaks with a Bond villain accent, would be somehow pulling the strings behind the scenes. He was boasting how Justin Trudeau was once a young global leader, which is some kind of a title they give to up and coming people that they also invite. I think that this is mistaken. It's not that the WEF sort of sends the instructions to all these powerful people. It's simply the case that this very problematic agenda, that this agenda is being supported by all of these powerful people, and that unsurprisingly, when they all get together, the consensus is what most of them agree. However, this year, it's actually quite interesting. The newly elected libertarian president of Argentina, Javier Milei, will be attending, and he has announced that he is going there not only to try to secure trade deals for his country, for Argentina, which is good in itself, but also to sort of challenge the socialist agenda, as he calls it, that is being promoted over there.
Do you think he will be successful with that?
Yes and no. Of course, he's not going to convince a single of these fellow leaders, but I do think, and I hope that it will sort of raise some media interest. The media like it, when you have a bit of a fight, when you have a controversial figure like Milei making waves, and who knows, maybe in this way he can raise some interest for free market ideas, for the ideas of liberty, of self-government, which are, of course, completely and sort of hostile to the top-down control mindset that most people that go to Davos support.
If we look at the attendees, one of them are the chairman of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Her commission is under a lot of scrutiny for a lack of transparency and issues of democracy, which also concerns the entire European Union. How bad is it that an elected leader of the European Union decides to attend this kind of closed meetings?
Yeah, I do think that you can question whether she should even go there, because she thinks that she is still a politician, and she has been a politician. She was a pretty bad defense minister of Germany. That's one of the reasons why Germany is, and the army there is in such a poor state. But she is no longer a politician. She is a bureaucrat. She is the leader of or the chief bureaucrat of the European Commission. And indeed, I think you can question, like, should these kind of people attend these network events? I'm not convinced. I think the normal thing would be for her to wait for the instructions of the leaders of the 27 democracies in the EU. And she just gave a speech there. She was, of course, also saying some things that were correct, like that we have sort of a number of crises in the world that are very concerning, and she pointed at Ukraine. Then, of course, she was also mentioning climate change and disinformation as things that are for her very concerning at the moment. Well, of course, climate is a scientific discussion, but the way that the European Commission wants to reduce CO2 is not by relying on technology and innovation, but by top-down control, by telling countries not only that they have to reduce CO2, but also how they have to do it, by promoting more wind and solar and even biomass, which is basically importing trees from all over the world to Europe and burning them over here. This is now, according to the European Commission, environmentally sustainable. And of course, when she talks about disinformation, she doesn't refer to the statements that you often hear coming from the European Commission that are not always in line with the truth, but she mostly refers to the political opposition to her agenda. And I think this is very concerning, because the European Commission over the last year has been implemented regulations like the Digital Services Act that are constraining social media under the pretext of fighting disinformation. These American big tech companies are obliged to hire fact checkers and are forced to introduce all kinds of mechanisms that are supposed to fight disinformation, but the real reason is of course that EU officials try to gain influence in the media, and this is not something that we should have in a democracy. In a democracy, the media and the state should be strictly separated.
And my final question is, the EU is currently having a lot of issues related to the lack of democracy in their institutions. Do you think that the attendance of Ursula von der Leyen to the World Economic Forum, will that broaden the crisis and even further deteriorate the views that the European Union is having a democracy issue?
I do think it's a symptom of sort of the lack of accountability. I mean, in a normal state of affairs, people would say, wait, you are a bureaucrat. Why are you attending this, networking conference? You're not supposed to have any ideas of your own. I mean, maybe I don't want to exaggerate things, but I do have a problem with that. She thinks of herself as some kind of being on par with government leaders, but the truth is that she is a failed politician in Germany that was promoted away by Angela Merkel to Brussels to head the European Commission, and I don't think she's doing that in a very satisfying manner. Under her mandate during the last 5 years, we have seen a lot more regulation. We have seen a big increase in the amount of money that the European Union is spending, whereby it is even burdening the grandchildren with more debt. So I don't think this kind of person should just be allowed to go to an important conference to sort of come up with all kinds of speeches that are ultimately only her own private opinion.
Thank you very much, Pieter Cleppe, Editor-in-Chief of the Brussels Report.eu.
Thank you.